This video goes through the photo invoice part of the CSC 101 Basic Excel Lab. And I've already loaded that spreadsheet here, and notice that, of course, most of the regular information is included here. And so all we have to do is fill in the formulas, and again, we're going to improve the formatting some here. So the first thing we're going to do is center Better Image Photos across the whole thing, or excuse me, Better Image Studios. So do a merge and center on that, and we're going to make that 18 point here, and let's make it bold. And then the professional photo order underneath it, we're going to make that 14. And again, we're going to do a merge and center on that. Okay, so step number 4, let's put the borders on here. And this is fairly simple. We want all the borders on this basic invoice part of it here. So again, remember, click the little down arrow here and select all borders. That is then filled in. We want a box here for the grand total, so just click that, and we want a box for the tax rate. So those are now taken care of. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is calculate what's called the extended cost, or what this particular spreadsheet calls the subtotal. And so that, of course, is just the number of prints that we've ordered times the price of each one of those prints. So equals 25 times the price each here, and hit enter, and you should get 750 for that particular value. The next thing that we want here is we want to figure out the tax. Well, the tax is simply the subtotal here times the tax rate here. So we'll say subtotal times the tax. And then finally, the total is simply the subtotal plus the tax. Now notice that I just did that with a plus. We could have done the sum of these two cells, but for just adding two things together, the plus is actually quicker. So we should get $8.10 for this first line. So everything looks good there. So why don't we now copy this, these formulas down. So I'm going to grab these 3 formulas, and then I'm going to pull the autofill down so it fills in the rest of these. And you'll notice that the subtotal seems to be fine here. If we look at the values here, that it does seem to be doing correct things. However, the tax, and therefore the total, just seems to be completely out of control. Sometimes we're getting errors here. Sometimes we're getting huge values that just don't make any sense. And so we probably should think here something went wrong. And what went wrong here is, remember, when we copy cells, it moves the references. So this particular cell, to figure out the tax, I do in fact want to multiply E8. So if I click here, I can see the values that are being talked about. I want to multiply this subtotal, E8, times the tax rate, and put the result there. So that's right. However, the next cell down, when I copy that formula, notice that what it does is it moves this down 1 value, but it also moves the tax rate down 1 value. So now it's multiplying it times this blank here, which of course is going to give us a 0. The next one, again, we're now taking for the tax to be G7 here, which is this total. And it says, oh, wait a minute, I can't even do that. You want me to multiply something here by a word? That doesn't make any sense. So now we know what's going wrong here. The question is, how can we fix it? The way to fix this is to tell this G5 don't move when I copy you. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into what's called an absolute reference. So instead of being a relative reference that moves as I copy, this one's going to be an absolute reference. So I'm going to click on the G5 here, and then I'm going to hit the F5 key. I'm sorry, the F4 key. And what that does is it fills in and puts dollar signs in front of the G and in front of the 5. And what this says is no matter where I copy this formula, do not change this cell. So when I copy these down here, now if I look at every one of these, the G5 never changes. The other cell, the E cell, does change as I go down, E12, E13, but G5 always stays the same. And now we'll notice here that our values are now correct. The formulas produce the correct values. So like I said, way back at the beginning of this lab, almost always when we copy formulas or when we drag them to autofill them, we want this property where they move down, or what we call relative references. But there are a few occasions where we do want something to stay at a fixed place as we go through, and the way we can do that is by using the absolute cell reference, which you can either just put the dollar signs in here, you could just type them in yourself. There's nothing special about the F4 key except it does it for us automatically. Okay, so that takes care of the taxes now, and we need to calculate the total for the row, which we've already done. We did that a little before here. And then finally, we need to calculate this grand total. And again, we can't use the auto sum here, so just equal sum and go select all those values and hit enter. And we should get $101.85, which we do once we consider that this will be rounded. So remember, the tax gives us larger values here. We're going to ignore the fact that tax is usually done by rounding, or by always going up to the next highest value, and we're just going to go with a standard rounding for the tax. So it depends on the state you're in and the rules that you're working with how that, whether you have to look it up in a tax table or whether you can just simply do either a ceiling or a simple rounding as to what you fill in there. But we're going to go for simplicity here. Okay, so what we need to do is format all of these values now with currency. So let's highlight all of those, and we'll go to currency here. And so those are now all nicely formatted. Do the same thing for the grand total. Change that one to currency. And so now we've got a nice printout here. And finally, let's make this even a little nicer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the headings of these columns here, and we're going to select all of them going across here, and we're going to put a fill color in here so that this bar across the top is going to sort of have a colored background to it. Now you can pick any color you want, but I would suggest one of these lighter colors toward the top of these color families that go down here. So I'm feeling in a purple mood today, so I'll pick purple there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make the headings here match that same color. So we're going to go here and select the Better Image Studios and the Professional Photo order that's underneath it. And this time we're going to change the color of the font. And again, we're going to pick it, and pick one from the same family, except make it quite a bit different, darker, excuse me, so that we have a clear difference between the white and the background behind it. So now, this is one of the common things that you do as you're making things look prettier, is you begin to use color highlighting. And my suggestion always is stick with a color family, so it doesn't just look like you've randomly picked colors, but here this color and this color are at least of the same family. We don't have the same color there. We don't want the same color there, but they're at least shades of each other, so it all looked nice. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to make this grand total and make it bold so it just stands out a little bit more. So at this point, we are done with this particular spreadsheet. Please save it so that you can hand it in.